Babble with Ben.
This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be participating today. Hello and welcome to The Babble. My name is Ben Charlie Brown. This week's guest is Marc Eiden, otherwise known as The Artificial Limb. He is a music producer and filmmaker from Melbourne. In this interview, we talk about his latest album, Run God Run, as well as his musical influences and the parallels between his music making and his filmmaking. This episode was filmed on the 13th of July 2024 at Studio C at Box Hill Institute. I hope you enjoy my interview with The Artificial Limb. Welcome to The Babble, Marc Eiden, aka The Artificial Limb.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
Yeah, good mate, yourself?
Good.
Thanks for making it in today. So we've got a few things to talk about today, not least of which being your most recent release, Run God Run.
Yes.
That's been out for when did I go and see that party down in Brunswick? Was that?
That would have been around end of November last year. That was the launch. But I feel like the music's been around for a long time. You know, when you're releasing an album, you hold on to it and you find a day. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, or you feel like you're with the music for quite a long time, and then it comes out and then you're in that next phase, which is like sharing it.
Yeah, I can sit on music. I mean, I've got a track that I mastered in January, and at the moment I'm still like, okay, this is time to let it out. So I get the feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not. I mean, some people would probably do it more in like a conveyor belt. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yep, cool, it's been mastered. Now we'll set the release date. That's and that. But it sounds like you did something a little bit different. Like you had to sort of hold on to it for a while, and then it was like, okay, we're ready now. Let's do it.
A bit, and it just took me a long time to do. After the first album, it was like, is this something to keep doing? And it just came out. It came out naturally. It wasn't anything forced. It was like one track here, one track there, and then started to build it as an album. And it's just one of those things where you have so much stuff going on in your life and you go, is this the thing? Is this one of the things? And you just keep doing it. And it's like, oh my God, it's the thing. It's the thing.
Yeah, it's a bit like a plant or a tree. It's like when it's ready, it's there. There's no rushing it, right? Or even the rain. Like you can't force the rain. It's just like when it's there, you're ready, right? So
and you either do it or you don't. And sometimes you catch yourself doing it and working on it, and you haven't really thought about it. It just feels natural. So that's what it started feeling like with that second album. And it was like, okay, this is something, but it just took a long time. Had some health issues, and then trying to figure out, do you release an album now? Is that a thing? But I'm such a fan of albums, and I really wanted to bring a collection of work together rather than just a bunch of singles or EPs. So it could have come out quick like that.
it is that statement, isn't it? Like that's something that I talk about a lot with my guests. Like, you know, what is the merit of an album versus a single? And with the album, yeah, you get that, you know, that meal, so to speak, right? Like you can have that adventure, that journey throughout the hour or however long it takes. For people that haven't heard your music before, I know it's always like a tricky question, right? But how would you describe it?
I'd describe it, it's electronic dance music, but it touches on experimental, it touches on, for me, it touches on punk rock, it touches on heavy music. So I put it all together. I'm not quite sure what category it sits in apart from electronic. You might have a better idea of that than me. And, you know, I've heard people say techno. I don't think it's techno. I think about if you go to a record store, where would it fit? And I'm not 100% sure.
It covers, I was listening to it in the car today. I've listened to it a couple of times, but I was listening to it in the car today and I'm like, yeah, I can sort of pick what I would think were influences, but it wouldn't be entirely ambient. It wouldn't be, who would you be next to at the record shop? I would put you next to Kraftwerk quite happily. Maybe Boards of Canada, maybe, that sort of stuff, right? So that's of course, my perspective, right? Would you count those acts in your influences? Like, who would you say has inspired you in your musical journey?
Oh, I love those two acts. And saw Kraftwerk, was it this year? I think it was this year.
Oh,
saw them live, and it was just incredible. I always loved electronic sort of music, but I come from more of a hip-hop background. So for me, it's beats. It's very beat driven, very rhythmic, and come from a hip hop background. So I bring that, and I think there's an energy to that, and hopefully that comes through in the music.
Oh, listening to the low end, you definitely, because I can see how that work that you do on the low end definitely comes from a hip hop perspective. You've probably got a couple of 808s in there somewhere, hey?
The 808. I just grew up with that Def Jam sound with Run DMC, Beastie Boys, and LL Cool J, and they had the 808, and that drum machine's just wired in my brain. And when I hear that, it makes me feel awake and alive. I always try and sneak those sounds in somewhere. I like a dirty, gritty sound. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would you describe yourself as much of a gearhead? Do you get the gear lust?
I'm starting to be a bit more of a gearhead now. I don't think I ever really was. It was just more it's just expensive. People just end up buying gear after gear, and they just must have endless amounts of money. It's expensive. So, I had to make a decision. Just buying a laptop's expensive, so laptop, and then from there, Ableton, and so what can I do in the box? And then I was, lucky enough to save up for an Ableton Push, and that was pretty much the first album I did, was like combining those two, and Ableton Push really just took me out of the box, and it was a bit more playing going on, and recently started getting into a bit more gear. So I've got you said a Moog earlier on. I call it Moog, but I know it's pronounced Moog, but I keep calling it a Moog, and I'll just call it Moog for this. A Sub 37 synthesizer, and I got that during lockdown as a bit of a present to myself, and Ben, it was just phenomenal. Like, I just remember putting the headphones on, pressing one note, and just going, whoa, that bass that's coming out of those circuits, whatever they do, it's different from things that I've produced in the box. And it is just such a beautiful, warm sounding machine, and you feel like you're playing with the circuits. You feel like you're playing with the air that's going through it and the vibrations, and that was just a turning point. So I feel like that was sort of towards the end of the Run God Run album, and whatever I do now is going to have that as a main instrument.
It is funny, the emotional attachment that you'll get from a hardware synthesizer that you'll never get from a VST.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I had it. Now I understand, but I'm cautious. I don't want to be buying a gear for every single thing. So,
and there is a certain liability with that hardware equipment as well, because I understand you're on at least your second push now from one gig. I had the misfortune to see, was it a beer that went over?
A beer went over. It was a push one, and it was so good. Like, I had traveled to Europe with that one and played a gig over in Europe, and it just had a lot of, was quite connected to that push. So that happened, and it completely fried the circuits, and then I had a gig the following week. Ooh. And the push is such a huge element, and I needed it, and put a call out to the electronic sort of music community, and there were people available to sort of go, here, borrow mine, which was so nice. But I ended up getting another one. So
did you get the 2 or the 3?
no, the 3.
The 3. So you've gone from the quite pixelated orange display to like the full color OLED.
Yeah,
That's
but it's
an
still plugging it to the laptop. It'd be really nice to where you don't need the laptop anymore.
I've seen the standalone one. I've never played with the standalone ones. Yeah, I have a Push 2 as well, and I have used it for a few performances now, and there is something very nice about the tactile nature of that too. Like as you go to launch a scene, and there is something very nice about having the dedicated knobs for the let's say the filter or the volume as well.
Yeah.
There's almost a reflexive nature when it comes to the hardware where you can just go, oh, okay, cool, I've got to fix that, boom.
Yeah.
Away that goes. Because I don't know about you, but I certainly get anxiety on stage.
Yeah.
And as part of that, the more reassuring things you can have on stage, the easier the performance gets. Do you find that?
I definitely have the anxiety, and I think a lot of time that sort of prevented me from actually having fun up there. Now I feel like I'm having a ball. All I've got to figure out is to make it sound good to me, that I'm listening as I'm playing, because if I hear it and I've got good monitors, fold-back monitors, and it's sounding good, that makes me play so much better. A lot of the time I feel like things are bouncing off the walls, and I feel like, oh my God, this sounds terrible. What are they hearing out there? So I've got some inner ear monitors now, but they just feel weird. It just feels closed in. But getting back to your point with anxiety, you definitely, have you ever had a gig where everything's gone right with gear? I don't think I have.
There have been ones that have come closer than others, but there have been absolutely terrible ones where there was one assessment that I had here where I was doing basically like a live looping assessment, right? And so what would happen is I would build up like a 4/4 beat, and then I'd like put the snares, the hats, play the bass line in the keyboard, and then like do a guitar bit, right? And what happened was I was doing 2 songs, right? And I did the first one and I sort of stumbled over it a lot. But then when I came to the second one, I'd rehearsed it in the morning and I'd done a fade out at the end, right? And so when I came to doing, I saved it after I'd done the fade out, right? I get on stage and I was doing 2 separate Ableton templates for each song, right?
Yeah.
And so I finished the first song and I'm like, oh, thank fuck I got through that. And then I get to the second one and I press play and nothing comes out. And I'm like, okay. And I put my headphones on and like nothing's coming out. And I'm like, what on earth? And basically I'm just there on stage squirming for like 5 minutes and the assessors just say, right, Ben, come back next week. And what I realized had happened when I got back home, I had done my rehearsal at home. I'd faded out the master volume at the end, saved it, and then come back to the performance with the master all the way down without even realizing it. And that's one of the tricks with hardware too, is there's a number of different places where you can like kill the sound for something, right?
Yeah.
And so that was probably one of the more disastrous sets I've done using technology like that. Yeah. And I think, have you got some horror stories like that?
I've got out of sync sort of issues and things like that. But I think what I'm trying to do is minimize things going wrong now. So trying to learn from experiences and try and do less. But you can't do everything, and trying to minimize tracks so it's not a million things all happening at the same time. So that's where I'm at, and that's because I don't want the horror show. It's horrible. Like, you put so much energy in getting there, performing your music, and then to feel bad about it afterwards kind of really sucks. You want to feel really good. And so I feel like right now I'm sort of at the stage of it needs to sound good to me, and I need to make sure that monitoring situation is sounding good, because when the sound's bouncing off walls and you're playing a synth and it sounds like everything's out of tune, your brain starts going, am I out of tune? Am I playing the right thing, or maybe that's wrong? And then just to have that doubts, that affects the performance. And so I want to try not to have that, Ben. That's where I'm coming from.
Oh, look,
yeah.
I totally get you, because by the
it's
time...
a work in progress.
By the time you've got a oddly shaped room, and then you've got your own delay on these instruments, all of a sudden you're doubting whether you're in time or not.
Yeah, it's that doubt.
And as a vocalist, I find that if I have to be really insistent with the front of house guys or the monitor guys, right? I'm just like, make it loud. I'll let you know when it's too loud, right? Because it's one thing when you're sound checking, but then by the time the band's there, and the band always gets louder as as the performance goes on, right? And so, like, if you can't hear yourself on stage, you are cooked. Yeah. And I mean, the in-ears is something I want to invest in. The in-ears are something that I'd like to invest in as well. And I think what I've heard a lot of people say, which might help you, and I don't know whether you do this or not, is they have a microphone that points to the audience to try to get a little bit of the room inside the in-ears.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Because it is very isolating.
It's very isolating, and you just sort of like, I don't know what's going on, and I'm sort of used to looking out at the crowd, seeing how people are reacting, and you hear it, you hear them as well, like. And I love that part of it, and having the inner ear monitors to cancel all that out and just be in your own head. It's something to get used to. I wish it was a combo of the two. Maybe I've just got to be one ear, but then I don't want the other ear to be out of tune or to feel. Anyway,
yeah,
it's a work in progress, Ben.
Maybe the ambience mic is the way to do it.
Maybe.
Because I have certainly done performances where, while I didn't wear in-ears, I wanted the drummer to play to a click. Yeah. And so, they were wearing in-ears as well. But yeah, it is that thing. Like, you don't want to be separated from the audience like that.
And talking about drummers, I play with an extraordinary drummer, Alan Stanley, also AKA the Rev Al. And once he started using the inner ears, and it's not to a click track, it's to what's coming out of that I'm playing, everything just started to work. And we had some sync issues, but once he started wearing those, it was fantastic. Like, everything just started cooking.
I remember, I think we were going to talk about the parties that we both used to go to, organised by Andrew Rickard, the Woolly Rocks parties. And I remember, as a little bit of a tangent to that you and Al were trying all these solutions. I think he had like a bracelet that was synced to the MIDI clock or something, or like a necklace or something like that. It's a really common thing, hey. But I think the in-ears are now at the point where they're affordable, and they're actually pretty good. Yeah. Like, the in-ears that I got for my drummer, they were like $20, but they were really good. You had to buy like because you've got the option, of course, the wired in-ears and the wireless in-ears, right? And like the wired in-ears you can get for maybe like $100 all up, but the wireless ones you're looking at a $500 investment for those ones. Yeah, I can see how they're worth it. But of course, you've got to come up with the cash, right? But it's good that more and more artists are thinking that that's the way to go. Hey,
you get good sound coming to you, then you can put the good sound back out there. But you mentioned Woolly Slopes, and that's pretty cool. You and I have this history where we were around these very creative people putting on parties, and big shout out to Missy on a property sort of outside Dalesford, and what a great creative space that was for a lot of artists starting up for the first time, having this safe space, and it was it was like a full-on performance, and you would do the sound, and there'd be like big speakers set up and no neighbours, so people could be as loud as possible, and Andrew would be the timekeeper, managing everything and going, okay, you're on for like 40 minutes, okay, next act on. Took it really seriously, and I'm so appreciative because I feel like my music, even though I was doing it before then, that really helped build my confidence and put me in touch with a beautiful creative partnership with Al and lots of people from that crew. What do you think of that time?
Oh, well, because I was on the clock, because I was getting paid to do the sound, I was definitely feeling ragged by the time that we were all, because we were all in various states of, shall we say, exhaustion, right?
Yeah.
By the time that it wraps up at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, on a Sunday morning, right? But no, it was just the most fantastic lineup because there was no one that was like world famous, you know what I mean? But everyone, it had been very carefully curated,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So there was no one that was bad. There was lots of people that were doing really interesting stuff. And there was a good crowd of people too because, we were essentially, camping on someone's property, right?
Yeah.
We've got the sheep down in the bottom paddock.
It was a music festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a festival, let's say 150 people maybe?
Maybe a bit more
Maybe
at
a bit more,
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'd always end with the Doors, and that would be like, Andy would say like, turn that up to the most, and you could hear it ring out. And that was good for me as my sort of live audio engineer chops, because I would make recommendations to Andrew about, okay, let's buy a graphic EQ, let's get a desk with some compressors, let's get a subwoofer. I tell you what, the year we started getting subwoofers, that was a bit of a game changer too, like especially for the electronic acts too.
Yeah.
And so there was just that great community, you know what I mean?
It's all about the community, isn't it? Because I definitely felt supported, felt like there was a group of people that were interested in hearing the music I was making, the music Al and I were doing together. And if you don't have that, it's hard. And so that was just such a beautiful place to test out things, and to see if things worked, and without the pressure, because it wasn't out in. It felt like it wasn't out in the real world. It was like this protected space of creativity, and then from there, people have gone on to do what you're doing, what I'm doing, Andrew's now doing. What a cool experience we had.
Absolutely. It was it was the soil in which things grew. Because Andrew has now got his own project, which is software. I think it's short for development in German. Do you know how to say the
Entwicklungskit or something like that? Yeah, I struggle.
Yeah. I'm sure he's done that to be not obtuse. What's the word? Acute. He's done that deliberately to be like, this is who I am, And so it's kind of like it is good to see all those different projects that have grown out of it. Now, speaking of those different projects, we have got a little gig that we should do a little shout out for as well. Yeah,
Strawberry Lipstick, which I've not seen live, but I've listened to your live recordings, and it's so good. You got live recordings, and so I feel like I know what it's going to sound like, and I'm excited. That's amazing energy. So Strawberry Lipstick, I'll be playing in kind of a band mode. It's not all. There'll be people coming in and out of my set, and I'm playing with a really awesome guy, Manny. He's playing. Do you know Manny? He's playing the tambor. I think it's a Kurdish instrument.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't think I do. Yeah,
it's a Persian. It's like a 3-string, really old instrument, very light sort of wood, and we're going to start the set with that. And I've got a little drum machine, so we're going to start. I always like starting with a bit of ambience and something quieter, and then build. Got Johnny Johnny Hand Grenade. He's playing bass, and Al's going to be playing drums. So really looking forward to playing that set on August the 10th with Queen Hyena, which is a band I met in Footscray, and they're kind of like psych rock. To me, it sounded like early Spider-Bait. It just has so much energy, and the lead singer, she also plays flute, so there's a bit of rock flute, which is always a good thing. So that's going to be good, and Andrew's going to be playing with software Entwicklungskit. I'm not quite sure, and AC Saunders. So they're joining forces, and AC Saunders, Grace, is really good sort of country, alt country sort of sound. So they're combining forces with alt country with beats. So that's going to be interesting. So that'll be starting the night at 7 o'clock, and it goes to 11 at Mama Chen's, which is a very cool venue in Footscray. So it should be good.
That's August 10th.
August the 10th, Saturday night. Good. So, and you're going to be playing with a new bass player?
We have got a new bass player. Yep, her name's Clem. Yeah, so
Fantastic.
We're very happy to have Clem on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of all come together, isn't it? And it's funny as you trace back the roots of how these things all come together. It's like, oh yeah, this action resulted in this, and so on.
And you went off,
nice.
and from audio engineering sort of space, and now you've got all these bands, podcasts. You've gone full music. And so I'm doing my thing, Andrew's doing his thing, and it's going to be a really nice night of coming back together, but everybody doing their thing. And what I'm really excited about is a night where the music's really it's high energy, but it's different genres of music. So it's the punk rock thing that you're doing. It's sort of a rock psychedelic thing. There's beats. There's the dance music that I'll be bringing. So to me, I just wanted to curate a night that I would dig in the spirit of Willy Rock. That was eclectic. It wasn't just pure dance music. It was like there'd be different acts up against each other, different sounds, and it just keeps things interesting.
There was definitely a big mix. There was rock, there was blues, there was country, there was all sorts of stuff. And I think, you raised a very good point of sort of how all of us are finding these different disciplines from where we started, but they're complementary as well, because you also have a background as a filmmaker as well, and that informs your music too, because you were, before we started rolling, we were talking about how you build a set and how you construct that journey with the music, right?
Yeah.
And so do you find that your filmmaking background helps you construct the album and give that journey?
Album or live set? Both things. Both things,
let's
actually.
Say the live set,
And getting back to what we were talking about earlier about making an album to me just feels like a movie. And it's got all the chapters, all the scenes to make the movie, and you've got to have the start of your movie, and you've got to have the end, and you've got to have the middle bit sort of thing. And with the live set, I've really, after doing, lots of live shows, I'm really thinking about it, like how to start it, where it needs to end, where it goes so intense that you need a bit of a break. Just things that when you watch something and it's really good, why was it really good? Why was that gig? I saw the Dirty Three a couple of weeks back, and it was phenomenal. Like, it started off, it just built, and then it just went full on intensity, and then it brought it down. It's just like a good film. If you think about what's your favorite film, for me, I love Mad Max Fury Road. Can't stop watching that film. Loved Furiosa as well, but Fury Road, just the way it's intense, but it has moments where it gives you a break and a breather, and then it starts it up again. That is a fantastic, put that Fury Road in the context of a live show or an album is kind of where I want to be.
Absolutely. And yeah, it is about that light and shade. It's about,
Yeah.
I mean, here at uni, they're always talking about dynamics, contrast. And, as I was starting, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a bit whatever. But the older I get, I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes the performance, because, you can go to a performance or you can even listen to like a DJ set. It's the classic thing, right? If the DJ is just... Younger DJs will start off where they're just like, right, I'm going to drop all my like 10 out of 10 intensity tracks, one after the other. And after 15 minutes of that, where you've just been dancing, you've been moving full on, it's like, oh God, I need to go and find a couch, like, especially as I am now in my mid-40s and like, the back and the knees aren't as they once were. And so, it really is about building those peaks and valleys in the set, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think, especially as you're saying, you've got more players now too. You can sort of add them in, and you've got that visual interest now as well. Because I was going to mention before with the when we were talking about building your set and figuring out what to put in and what to bake in, right, and then what to do live, right. There's a real thing for that too, because you don't want it to be that you press play on Ableton, right?
Yeah.
And nothing can go wrong, but the audience almost is anticipating.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit like a tightrope, you know what I mean? The higher up the tightrope is, the more fun it is to watch. And with a live set too, it's like, okay, yeah, cool. You've just got the stereo master and you press play. How do you build a visual interest into that? Whereas now you've got the different software synthesizers that you can change the parameters of. You've got the Moog there as well, and now you've got Al on the drums. You've got
there's one other crucial element I haven't discussed.
Oh yeah,
is Sean Hogan, Melbourne artist. So
how could we forget?
Yeah, so he's part of the band. And so a big part of playing live for me is how my music connects with Sean's visuals. And so Sean will be VJing the set at Mama Chen's. And I think pretty much every gig has Sean's artwork with it. And it's just a beautiful collaboration I have with Sean. Shout out to Sean Hogan. Go check his work on Instagram. It's just, I feel like I can't really do a show without that visual element. It's a big part of the music and big part of what I would hope the audience gets something from. So it's not just someone twiddling knobs.
It's a crucial part, I think, of a lot of electronic sets now.
Yeah.
I saw a group called Infected Mushroom who do psytrance. And we saw them at the Prince Band Room in St Kilda, right? And they had this just stunning 4K HDR wall, and the music was great, but gosh, did the visuals sort of build into the full experience, right? And so it's the same with you and Sean too.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely remember, being in the room and just going, oh wow, there's things moving up here, there's things moving here, it just performs the whole package. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's what I would like to do. Is just get all those elements right, and put on a fun show, which hopefully is like Fury Road.
Very good, very good. Well, we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah.
So we've got the gig on August 10th at Mama Chen's. Have you got any other announcements coming up?
No, that's it for now.
That's it? Oh, that's still heaps to look forward to, yeah. Absolutely. Now, if people want to find you on the intertubes, where do they go looking?
I think just look up The Artificial Limb music, and then you'll find all the sites up on all the platforms, check out the music.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for coming on, Marc.
Thank you, Ben.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye.